Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and certified self-leadership trainer with the John Maxwell team, Dom Brightman. And this is the podcast where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. Now let's get on with the show. Today's episode is sponsored by the brand new Northbound to Your Success shop, where you can buy the wonderful logo, advance others to advance yourself in t-shirt form, mug form, heck, even a phone case if you like a phone case. Either way, click on shop on goingnorthpodcast.com, cop a t-shirt, hoodie or two, and be sure to tag the host when you do, so that way I can give you a shout out on a future episode of the podcast. Now let's get down to business with the episode for real. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, the Going North Podcast, baby, we got another super special, awesome human for you today, folks, because she hails from the Sacred Stories Media crew, y'all. That's right, indeed. One of those super special, awesome humans has a shiny halo hiding around somewhere because they put pen to paper and decided to join the business of immortality. And this time in more ways than one, since this is her first solo book. So this wonderful lady right here, let me tell you a bit about her. She is not only a writer, but she's also a singer and songwriter. So not only she's writing books, she's writing songs, y'all, and she sings them too. So that's right, angel swag all day for this lady right here. And she's also an actor and a former adjunct English professor, y'all, turned expressive arts therapist. So that's right, folks. She's a black belt master of English, y'all. So that's right. So hide all the red pens in your English test, y'all. That's right. She's coming for you, maybe. But hey, she's actually coming to promote her super special, awesome book and all of her wonderful wares. Let's give it up for the wonderful J of all trades. It ain't Jane today. We got the wonderful JH, the joyful and heavenly Janis Harper. How you doing today, Janis?
Love that intro, Dom. You are the king of intros. I'm doing very well. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, my pleasure, dude. It's an honor to have you because, my goodness, it's like you got a whole planet of creativity with that biography. And that's only 3% of it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I am what I guess people these days call a creative. They've it's become a noun that's applied to people. So it's like a kind of a personal pronoun, a creative. Yeah.
That's right. So she's the vitamin C for Earth, y'all. She's a creative. That's right. That's right, indeed. All the mosaics. That's right. All the songs. That's right.
Yeah, and there is a performing streak in there too, because I am a performing singer-songwriter and a performing actor. I don't know if you mentioned the actor part. Mainly a stage actor, although I've done some other kinds of acting as well. Yeah, but yes, as you mentioned, I am here to promote my novel, my metaphysical novel, Jonas and the Mountain. It's my third title. I do have, as you mentioned, it's my first solo book, and it's my debut novel. I do have two other titles out there that are creative nonfiction anthologies. Yeah, just thought I would throw all that in there. Over to you.
Yeah, that's right. The Janis Gumbo, baby. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, so with all this creativity, like, did you ever see yourself where you are at the age of 13? Is that like when your voice was first discovered by the folks around you and that became a path for you? Like, how did it all really begin?
Oh my goodness. Earlier than that, actually, I started writing songs when I was 9. I started writing stories when I was 9 as well, and performing shortly after that. I remember a time in my grade 4 class where I'd written a story. It was called Susie Snowflake, and I got to read it aloud to the class, and I was stopped by the bell for recess. And afterwards, so I didn't get to finish reading it, and afterwards people came up and said, "I'm so excited, what's going to happen next? I'm so sorry that the bell rang." And that really, at 9 or 10 years old, was my first feeling of being able to move people in a being able to move an audience, being able to touch an audience, and that was very powerful for me. And after that, I also, of course, wrote more and wrote and started performing songs and feeling that connection with others and the ability to move them. Yeah, I was brought up in a quite a creative family. My mother was an actress and a teacher, an educator, which of course I also was uh, as well. And she was a musician, and so there was a lot of fertile, creative stuff going on in the household, and a lot of singing, and she was very supportive. So I bow my head to her, um, disembodied now, but yeah, she was paramount in that. Yeah, yeah. So those are the beginnings, I guess, that I can trace, from the writing and the music and the acting, and also the path to being an educator as well. Yeah, it all comes from somewhere usually, doesn't it?
Uh, that's true indeed. That's true indeed. So generational educators, you love to see it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And in your background, Dom, do you have radio hosts or in your I'm interviewing you now in your family background?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, she used the chloroform on me. It's like, all right, so yeah, so the Janis Harper Going North podcast, it's where she interviews random people. So yeah, it was crazy. For me, actually, preachers are in the family more than anything
Ah,
else.
ah,
From what I
right.
can trace, I know a lot of military folks in the family too. Father was in the
Mm,
military, got a couple cousins in the military, and
mm,
heck, even my uncle, one of them, the favorite, he's actually was in the military as well. So yeah, so preacher is military folks. So yeah,
mm.
spoken word is definitely
Okay,
in the realm.
that makes sense. That whole the preaching um, strand to me really makes sense. You have just such a wonderful, playful way with language. It's a joy to to watch you do it, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like you leave bunny ears on people and they wake up and find them later. It's like, ha ha, I got them. Metaphorically.
Yes, yeah, bunny ears. I'm also thinking of the kind of TV ears, receiving signals from beyond.
Oh yeah, that's right. That fifth eye
Hmm.
probably, aka third eye
Hmm.
for the folks who don't wear glasses.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's like, yeah.
Oh no, go ahead. You had something to finish.
I was just going to say that the bunny ears thing in my novel Jonas and the Mountain, the Metaphysical Love Story. One of the main characters, her name is Anamika, and she had those metaphorical receiving bunny ears. She found them on her head when she was an adolescent. And as we know, being an adolescent can be a very creative time, where the pineal gland opens and channels open wide. And that's what happened to Anamika. And she is in many ways me. And she just received a lot of um, really cool knowledge about all sorts of stuff. And she really didn't know what to do with it all after. So she ended up hiding a lot of it because every time she spoke what she knew to be true, she would often be met in not so good ways, people getting angry or yeah. So she ends up in India and meeting up with Jonas, who is the Jonas person in Jonas on the Mountain. Um, and she ends up being able to become herself in India, in that she's able to finally express what those bunny ears, what those receivers, what came through that wide open channel, what that gave her. She was finally able to express, and she covers all sorts of very cool topics. in her mode of teaching in the novel to various students. Yeah. And another little interesting tidbit about her, the character, Anamika, is that she discovers a way to bring her teachings home to her students, is to have them do an arts activity, an expressive arts activity. So writing, drawing, dancing, and sounding and all that, all the different arts modalities. So in effect, she finds her way to become an expressive arts therapist, which happened to me in many ways. I am Anamika, and that whole, being that English professor type person, gave way in midlife to discovering expressive arts therapy and doing that as a way to help people rediscover what they know within themselves through their own innate vitality and creativity. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that into the mix.
There we go. That's right, the Janis gumbo, baby. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed.
Mhm.
Because my goodness, and definitely some interesting, wonderful stuff in the book, and love that you mentioned that, and even put a little history of how the whole pineal gland happens, sort of thing, in the book too, and just all the wonderful stuff, especially with the details of the trip to India and everything else going on. It was
Mm.
actually kind of funny thinking it's like, oh, yeah, all the gurus, it's like some of them are extra famous and some of them hide in caves. And if the cave gets too
Mhm.
much attention, they go to another cave. It's like, no, I need true enlightenment. I need to be truly introverted here.
Huh. Yeah. The real masters and sages and gurus are the ones who don't draw attention to themselves. They people are drawn to them, or one is drawn to them rather than them getting up on a soapbox. Like Ramana Maharshi, the great sage, who is uh, who lived at Mount Arunachala, um, the holy Mount Arunachala in India, where this novel is set, and it's really a true novel. It's autobiographical, and there are lots of truth in it, lots of wisdom. And part of it is also there's that Eastern mystical strand of non-dualism that comes from Ramana Maharshi, and through him in the book there's a character, a guru, um, who is, I guess one could say, in lineage with Ramana and teaches a non-dualist philosophy. And Jonas discovers this guru and goes on retreat with him and learns about enlightenment and awakening through sitting still and quiet and in meditation. And he has many openings. Um, and when that ends, he ends up meeting this Anamika person who I just spoke of. And she has she has a system of metaphysics that involves multiple dimensions and partner selves. And she talks about time and various incarnations and oh my goodness, so many interesting topics: space travel and the body and illness and after death. Um, she can tell you what happens after death. And Jonas feels a need to find out which of these paths is true, because how can you be sitting in silence and surrendering in order to enlighten, and at the same time be creating your reality in the ways that Anamika discusses it. Yeah, so those strands of philosophy are paramount as well. Yeah, in the book. But as you mentioned, yeah, the whole the teachers, both of them in the book, and they don't have names. Anamika means in Sanskrit the nameless one, or without a name, and the guru, he is known just by the initial D. So there's that. But as you mentioned before, they don't stand on a soapbox. The way of their teaching just occurs as it does when you are full of something, then it finds its way out to others, whether you will it or not.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. And my goodness, like, I guess in a way, since it's autobiographical and all the stuff that you studied over the years, like, what was probably the hardest part of really putting this whole entire book together? Because I'm pretty sure it's a bit of a shift comparing to your last books, especially.
Yeah, well, actually, the other books were more than that because I conceived them and they came out of something very personal. And I have pieces in those books as well as I was the editor. So I shaped it and selected and rejected the submissions and yeah. So there is that. It was just a very different kind of writing because in those books, one is about body breakdowns, actually, about the body breaking down mainly at middle age and being vulnerable in the medical system, confronting mortality. And that book, both books were something that I wanted to see in the world because I needed that myself. The other book was called Emails from India, Women Write Home. And that was a collection of writing from people, from women, Western women traveling in India. And so both really were my babies too, even though they have many other voices in them, many other writers. But yes, this book was a shift. Certainly, that's a good way of putting it. And it also, in many ways, was a gift. Um, it came out of me without um, too much trouble. There was no there's no slogging over it. There is no tearing hair out and working for a long time, and it just really, one could say, poured out of me. I mean, there were lots of elements in it, that little bits and pieces that it turns out I had written before. Um, Jonas in the book uh, receive, receives poems automatically. So he's discovered this automatic writing poems and some prose bits. And that actually leads him to India, as well as hearing this voice in his head. So he has this, like, suddenly this psychic experience as his life has fallen apart completely, as is often the way these things occur. So for me, I actually wrote those same pieces myself in an automatic writing fashion. This was before the book was anywhere near conception. Like a couple of years before, I would get these poems and prose bits, and I really didn't know why they were coming through, but it was like really cool. So, um, I was open to that. And then when the book started, when it poured out of me, suddenly all of many of these poems that came through me had a place, and a very important place in the book. So really, in this novel, all the pieces that are in italics were not written by me in the same way that they were not written by Jonas. So neither of us can claim authorship of those bits. As for the rest of it, Anamika's teachings, some of those were written by me before, because I knew I had to get this stuff down, the stuff that I knew, that I felt I knew. And I really didn't know in what form it would be seen in the world until, again, this Jonas and the Mountain book began. And then those pieces found places in the book through being Anamika's teachings, as she's giving her satsang to her students in India. And as for the entire book, I mean, it feels like it's my heart. It feels very deep and special to me. And writing it was really one of the most passionate, exciting, creative times of my life. It took me through something the structure of the book appeared, and it's an unusual structure. It's structured by the 5 elements, and there's an interweaving narrative that comes together at a certain point. And I'd never thought I would write a novel in my life. I thought, I can't write a novel. And suddenly here I was writing this novel, and it was I was just following what was given, really. And each day I'd wake up and spend a lot of the day just pursuing the characters and seeing what was going to happen next. And it was never a conscious, structured thing. It just came of its own accord. Does that answer your question, Dom?
Oh, yeah, it does. So, do you think you might write more novels in the future after your positive experience with this one?
Well, I have no idea, um, because yeah, because this one was a surprise when it came, and I really don't know if there's another there. Sometimes I get little inklings of something that might be happening, which is kind of what happened with this. So little inklings. Um, I actually have a poetry manuscript right now. I'm also a poet, and I'm shopping that one around to publishers. Um, so I do have something else on the go, and I'm working on that a little bit as well as shopping it around. So there'll be a poetry manuscript before there's another novel, if one can even call it a novel. I guess it can be called an autobiographical novel, a metaphysical novel. Um, when I wrote it, I knew that it would have an audience with those who are interested in metaphysics, or like people who've read Seth, for example. You know, the channeled material from the 70s, Seth by Jane Robbins. Are you familiar, Dom?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Actually, led to
Yeah.
Abraham and Jerry Hicks, right?
Yes. Yeah. 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 So I knew that Anna Miko's teachings would resonate with readers of Seth and Abraham and Bashar and those people, and certainly it did, and also with people who are into non-dualist um, spirituality and practice, as it exists, um, historically, as well as in the contemporary non-dualist world, with the popular teachers, like, there's Gangaji and Muji and Adyashanti and all those guys. So I knew it would hit with that audience, but I didn't realize that it would also have a mainstream appeal. And I'm really excited about that this book is ending up introducing people who aren't non-dualists or spiritual, and people who haven't read Seth, who aren't into metaphysics. These people are being introduced to these kinds of concepts, and the experience of them through the book. So that's very rewarding to me. I've read reviews, where people say it changed their way of thinking, and opened up their world more. And one reviewer said that reading about spiritual experience is a spiritual experience. So that's been the reception has been very rewarding and really exciting to me. Partly because it was unexpected, and I'm just so happy that it has this wider reach than I had initially imagined it would.
Yeah, that's right indeed. Yeah, because it's so darn sure it's like getting into the character story, especially with let's say, I guess part one got to like chapter five of the book, and just with the whole English professor like traveling to India. It's like, oh my goodness, culture shock for real. It's like, oh, they hate the people. And then just actually
Mhm.
trying to say, in kind of a way, it kind of even can pair up with today's generation with social media and everything. With there's some real genuine people out there, then there's some charlatans too, and it's like, hey, you gotta find a way to sift through the right people and really truly find yourself within all of it, while making sure you discern and take in the
Mhm.
right information. And sometimes I think it was even
Mhm.
part of the mountain where the professor actually finally felt ready to take that journey to climb the mountain after finally getting to a certain part of India, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Climbing the mountain is metaphorical as well as physical, of course. Yeah, for me, I say it's autobiographical because um, I've been to India many times, 6 times actually, and on one time I did find a non-dualist guru at the foot of this holy mountain of Arunachala, which I really didn't even mean to go to, but I was kind of taken there, and yeah, and ended up going on silent retreats with this person who I kind of fell in love with, in the same way Jonas falls in love with him. And I've been on, yeah, several retreats over years with this person, with this guru dude. I call him my guru dude. um, at the same time, I do have this metaphysical streak, and I've been involved with channeling and all sorts of stuff like that in my life. So for me, this book is a way of seeing if these two different ways of approaching truth can coexist. And enlightenment is really the sticking point here, because in one path, the non-dualist path, that's what it's all about, is awakening into your true self, right? Into all that is, or source, or consciousness, and breaking out of the subject object dual reality, or illusory reality. So it's all about waking up, and yet in the metaphysics, in the other approach to truth, there's all sorts of other stuff going on, and enlightenment is not necessarily the be all and end all there. So that, for Jonas, as well as in my life, that became the crux of a concern, the sticking point. What does one do? Does one go for enlightenment, or does one go for learning and exploring and growing, and seeing how your world is reflected from what's going on inside of you, from the inside out, and how you are creating your reality along with your greater self, etc. Yeah. Ah. That's all I'm going to say about that.
You're probably, where the heck did I end up again?
Yeah, somewhere on the mountain. Hopefully near the top.
Oh yeah, that's right. All the top of the mountain with all the snow. That's right, Dade. That's right.
This mountain is the actual mountain, and it is on the cover, and it is the actual mountain. Arunachala has a distinct shape, and it's true that there are people from all over the world who are drawn to this mountain, like Ramana was, and who end up not leaving. They call it the Magnet Mountain, because it's filled with iron ore, for one thing, but once people get there, they find it hard to leave. And it's not like it's a beautiful mountain. It's not like it's, a really beautiful place either. I mean, it's dusty and dirty, and it's more of a hill. Some people do call it a hill, and you can climb it in 4 hours, like people do in the novel. But yeah, there's no snow. There's some palm trees, and it can be pretty hot there, but it is this real place. So I do want to mention that, and it's in a place called Tiruvannamalai in South India. And yeah, it's a special place. So I'm hoping that I know that people who are drawn to Arunachala are drawn to the novel as well, because there it is on the cover.
Oh yeah, that's right, Dade. That's right, indeed. So my goodness, so since you've been on this little mini tour promoting your wonderful work and your book and all the other stuff you got planned in the future, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game on these podcasts?
Oh, that's a lovely question. I don't know how to answer that, Dom. I take each interview as an experience, and just kind of see what evolves. And right now, nothing very much is coming to me, aside from, where can I get the book? That kind of thing. But I don't know. Is there any question that any special question that you like to ask your guests, just for the hell of it?
That's every interview. So, especially now. So, if this wonderful book, Jonas and the Mountain, was a food, what would it be and why?
Okay. I had one interviewer ask me, what kind of pizza do you like? If Jonas and the Mountain were food and why, I would say that it's a mango, a juicy, delicious mango, where you have this the outside um, is a little hard, and you slice it open, and it's not so easy to slice open because you got that big old oval pit in the middle, don't you? So you slice
Yep.
it open, and then there is all this beautiful, um, juicy, colorful, delicious flesh, ready to for you to stick your face into and just inhale and enjoy. And with mangoes, there's different ways of eating them, right? A lot of people have their own special way of eating a mango. I like to do the thing where you make with a knife like a crosshatch with the flesh. You slice one way and then you slice the other. So and then you pull the skin back inside out, and out pops all these squares that you can then eat easily. So hopefully the experience of reading Jonas is kind of like that, where you find your own way in. You find your own way of eating it. just just getting into the whole metaphor here. Whether you do it with a cross hatch, or whether you just slice the flesh out, or whether you just slurp it and make a sticky mess of it. I hope that it's something, yeah, that people find their own way into and love and enjoy, and get their own unique experience and answers from. Hmm. Yeah. Do you like mangoes, Don?
Mangoes are delicious indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, in connection with the book, I mean, they're a tropical fruit, and yes, there are mangoes in India. so there's that. But just the juiciness. This is a juicy novel. I hope I haven't made it sound too intellectual, because it's also, I mean, there's a juicy erotic scene in it, for example, that people are beginning to talk about. One person described it as a highlight of the book for him. Because after all, it is a love story. You've got to get into that. And there's a good story as well. Um, yeah, it's not simply a romance. Some people think of it as a romance, but it's not a romance novel. But it definitely has all sorts of kinds of love in it. And there is, the romantic love as well as the love of capital F self, and love of the teacher, and love, all sorts of all the, yeah, many sides of love, small L love and capital L love. But we were talking about mangoes, and here I am talking about love. I love mangoes.
That's how you put the jelly to the peanut butter.
Oh my goodness.
That's right. The man will
Yeah.
not be let go in this novel. Let me stop.
Oh yeah, go man, go. He can.
Don't
Yes.
let him go.
Don't let him go. The mountain. Um, yeah, the man, the mountain, and the mango. Boy, we're just playing. Yeah.
The- So that man, he went to the mountain with the mango in his hand, and he was going with the mango, and he was like, hey, I'm a man going with a mango.
Oh my goodness.
That's
Yeah.
right. Didn't think you'd be talking about mangoes today, did you?
No, no, I didn't. So now I'm thinking about mangoes. I can't stop thinking about mangoes. Better go get myself a mango and eat it while I'm reading Jonas on the Mountain. um, that's something. Yeah, yeah. You can eat the mango while reading Jonas on the Mountain. You can get the pages really messy, unless you're reading it electronically, of course. Um, yeah. Mm.
Ah, beautiful. Well, speaking of wonderful health, you have these wonderful practices listed in the back of the book for quick reference, since they were
Mm.
also mentioned in the book, and I'm sure you do or have done quite a few of them. So, my goodness, like, is there any particular spiritual practice that keeps you centered and creative? Even though those are two are probably totally different things, but sometimes the same thing.
Hmm. Um, Personally, um, I find the present, sinking into the present moment and breathing fully and being aware of the breath and the energy circulating. Um, but really, I find everything being is about being fully present, and that's where if you are that open channel where there's no sticky thoughts there, right? There's no bits of personality. There's nothing there but this wide open channel, which exists when you are fully present. That's where inspiration occurs. That's that's where creativity comes from. Um, yeah, and of course, getting out of the head any way you can do it is a great thing, and that's why Anamika uses arts activities partly. And thank you for mentioning the bits at the end of the book, because there are two appendices, and one is Anamika's exercises and meditations, which are there to invite the reader to if you'd like to experience Anamika's exercise and meditations for yourself, here they are. And they also appear in the book, but I have extracted them and adapted them a little for the reader. And then the other appendix is the subject guide to Anamika's talks, where there's the different subjects that one can go back to and read. Um, and I've been told that these are useful appendices to have at the back, because you might be reading about something that's really cool, and then by the end you forget where it is, and this way you can just look it up, because as you know that the smaller chapters don't have titles, so it's not revealed in that way, but the larger sections do. Yeah, so I find there's several exercises and meditations here, and they all again come out of the book and come out of various ways to take a teaching in, whether it's about your relationship with other people, um, and what that is actually, and how it's really all about you. There are Anamika gives some exercises that help show you that, and explore your relationship to other people and yourself. And if you don't mind, I should mention here that I read 10-minute excerpts from the book in an 8-episode podcast. And in some of those episodes, I speak as Anamika and take the listener through these creative exercises. That again, here the listener is invited to participate, and yeah, and the podcast is called Jonas and the Mountain Journeys, and it's available on YouTube. It's also available on the podcast channel of my publisher's website, sacredstories.com. Yeah, so that's another way the book becomes kind of transcends itself and becomes something else, almost kind of self-helpy, but it's not a self-help book, but it's something that you can engage with and participate in. Yeah, whether it's through the book itself, or if you want to go to the podcast, or whatever. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's
But
right, indeed. So, do you think you'll ever piece any of those together for an audiobook version of the book?
I really hope to do an audio version. I get asked that a lot, because I am an actor, and I do voice acting, and I just really love reading aloud. That's something that's from my childhood as well. So yeah, so my publisher and I are actually talking about me doing the audible version of the book, or the audio version of the book. So that hopefully is something that'll come down the pike later. And I really love reading it aloud. that's why I have that podcast. Partly. Yeah. So I hope to have that happen. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Oh, yeah, something for the blind readers, you know?
Did you say that?
Yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, that's actually a story about, I think E.J. Moran, she actually had a mystery novel that she both read and wrote, and she was at a book festival, and a husband and wife came up. The wife could see, but the husband was blind, and they asked, "Hey, did you have
Yeah.
audio?" And she got it was both parties. Like, hey, she got two sales, the book and the actual physical book, and the husband and wife they could actually go through the book together.
Wonderful. Yes. I won't tell you what I thought you said. For the blind readers, yes, definitely. And for people who just love listening to audiobooks. And again, I love reading, and I love bringing what I'm reading to life. So I'm excited about that. I don't read or listen to audiobooks myself. I don't really know about that world so much, but yeah, I don't know. Is it something? Do you listen to audiobooks, Don?
Oh yeah, actually my audiobook intake is probably neck and well, it's not even neck and neck anymore. It's actually probably surpassed my reading time because the thing is, an
Hmm.
audiobook I could do that on the go with and like take it on me on the go. It's like, all right, cool. If I'm doing some house chores, I can listen to an audiobook. If I'm on the road, listen to an audiobook. Can't actually read and drive at the same time, especially in
Hmm.
this period that
Hmm.
we're in where COVID made people drive 10 times stupid. So,
Oh yeah. Huh, interesting. Right. And is there a certain style of reading that you like? Like, I know that people are adding all, sound, sound effects, and I know there are audiobooks that sound more theatrical than read. Um, yeah. Is there something that you are drawn to, or does it matter?
it doesn't matter too much for me as long as it's a
Mm.
wonderful voice behind the actual book themselves and not monotone the whole time where they're like, oh, clear eyes, Ben Stein style. Like, as long as it's not that,
Mm.
then we're all
Yeah.
good.
My goodness, does that exist? Are there audiobooks like that? Maybe not these
Oh,
days being made, but
they exist. They
mm,
exist.
yeah, yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if anyone, if if you or any of your lovely listeners want a taste of what the audiobook of Jonas and the Mountain might sound like, then you're welcome to check it out in the podcast, because that's a little taste of how it will be. I think. Yeah. Mm.
That's right. It'll taste like 5 sweet mangoes, y'all. That's right.
Yeah.
Actually,
Mm.
probably 10. It's an 11-part series, right? It was a 10-part series.
It's eight. Yeah,
Oh,
an
okay.
8 part series. 3 episodes are where you meet the main characters. So I'm reading out parts of the book where you meet Jonas and the Guru D and Anamika, and then 5 episodes are devoted to Anamika's teachings and giving expressive arts activities to bring those teachings home. And they have the titles of those episodes are things like "You and Other People," and "The Meaning of Your Illness," "The Message of Your Illness." Um, yeah, I forget actually the other titles, but they're online. um, yeah, yeah.
Ah, sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is
Oh,
if you're
goody.
awake. Oh yeah, it's gonna be all the goodies. That's right, chocolate and white chocolate. But yeah, so if you're gonna wake up
Oh,
tomorrow and you're
dark chocolate and
25,
white chocolate.
oh yeah, that's right. Get a little swirling on. If you catch my drift. Something for the s'more crowd. Campfire stories
Right.
at the bottom of the
Yeah.
Jonas in the mountain. Let me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I interrupted you. Sorry, go on. I really don't know what the question will be.
Oh, you know what it is. So if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're at 25 again, but you're in the current year of 2022 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, hmm. 25, you say?
Yep, you're going
25
back
and
7 years.
25 and 2022. What advice would I give myself? I would say to continue to listen to my heart, to go with that. That's all. I could elaborate, I guess, but that to me is the kernel. I mean, I don't see my life as happening any differently because it happened as it did, and that's perfect as it is. So I really, on that level, wouldn't have anything to tell my 25-year-old self. Unless, are you referring to how that 25-year-old would interact with the current, like the pandemic or whatever's happening in the world? Is there that element in your question? Or I guess it depends on whoever's answering it. Hey, Dom?
Oh, yeah. Well, the original question is if you're 25 in the current times, pandemic and everything. However, a
Mm,
lot of folks always think about the 25 part. They always forget
mm.
the other half of the question. It's a three-part question. Yeah, so Dave, if you want to go even deeper with it, that's A-okay. If not, and you want to stay kangaroo swag, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, did I answer it? Do you think?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Folks can answer it however they want because a lot of folks, they
Yeah.
wouldn't change a thing. Some folks be like, oh, yeah, if I go back, I'd freaking kill it. Like, yeah, man, I'd be the youngest cougar ever. Like, sure, like my kids will be older than me.
Yeah.
I'd be freaking amazing.
Wow. Ah, 25. I would probably say kind of just to get over myself a little more. to not to not feel that I need to protect myself so much. Yeah, to get out of my own way a little more and to perhaps not be as yeah, I don't know. Again, it all goes back to listening. Listen to your heart, you know, listening to the heart and getting going from there, and not being so concerned about outside influences. I guess I feel that I've always really known what I know now. There's different shades to it, and there's different. Obviously, I've had a variety of experience, but when I look at my 25-year-old self, she knows what I know now um, as well. So, you know. And as for the pandemic, and that's just other stuff going on. Um, yeah, I mean, there's always stuff going on, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the penguins are ready to take over the humans for after all this global warming. Yep, stuff always
Mm-hmm.
going on.
Yeah, and there always has been. I hear people say, "Oh, now is the time for, the world is awakening," and there's all this. But people have been saying that for hundreds of years. Um, that now is the time the world is awakening. um, or people have been saying the same. Oh, the state of the world today, and how can it be any worse? I mean, that's another one that people have been saying forever. So I subscribe to the to time being illusory, anyways. um, Position, and that really there is nothing new or special. And on another level, everything is happening all at the same time. So there's really, if you strip away all of that stuff that's going on in time or current events, whether it's war or pandemic or racial violence, on one level that has always existed. Mm, yeah, on a wider level. And that's not to say that doing, if you feel like you can participate in eradicating what I feel I'm getting into dangerous waters here because it's getting a little political. But if you feel that you want to fight against oppression, then that's a good thing as well. You know, I'm not saying that that's not something that shouldn't be done. I'm just saying that it exists.
That's right. It
Hmm.
exists indeed. That's right. So you know what that means, folks. So watch out for the state of Montana. The penguins are there. They're going to take over the earth, y'all. That's right. The end of the world is coming. That's right. That's right, indeed. Prepare. That's right. Get your bomb shelter. That's right, indeed. Grab a harp.
Huh. Penguins in Montana. Why does that sound familiar to me?
I don't know.
It
Then
exists in
again.
the realm of imagination. Perhaps, yeah, your imagination. Anyhow, I can see it. And I'm Canadian, so I don't even know where Montana is really. I know what penguins are. They're way up north. And Canada's got a lot of that north and that white stuff and the ice and snow and penguins, but it's not, there's a lot more to Canada than that. But yes. Hmm. Getting silly now. Hmm. Just trying to match you. Excellent. Excellent. Hmm.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. One of my favorite things to do, get ultra serious people to be silly. It's one of the best things ever.
Yes, we should all be children and play. Just play. Yeah. And that's another way to get out of one's head, is to play. Expressive art therapy is very playful. Um, and that's what it's about too. It's not necessarily all about um, recovering or healing, but there's so much self transformation and all that good juicy mango stuff that occurs when one is being playful, whether it's whether it's through the arts or just playing. Yes, to be playful like you are with your language. Yeah, yeah, that's what it's all about. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that playing also, Dom, has to do with being here now, doesn't it? Like when you're playing, when a kid is playing, the kid is not thinking about the future or well, maybe what's for dinner or something like that. But the kid is really involved in whatever he or she is doing, immersed in that, immersed in the moment. Again, and that's play is always true. Play is always creative. And again, there's that being creative occurs when you're fully in the present and you aren't thinking and you aren't caught up in the sticky web of thought. You're not concerned and you're not thinking about the future or the past. You're just totally here now and you're playing. And that is really where it all happens. Um, yeah, so I'm all for play. Hmm.
Sweet. That's right, folks. So look for the mini novelette version of Jonas in the Mountain. It's going to be Jonas and the Juicy Mango. That's right, indeed.
I see a sequel. I see a sequel happening. Yes.
That's right.
I'll
She'll go
dedicate it
full
to you.
romance novel.
Ooh. I'm not going to go there.
Oh man. But in case you do decide to go to the different side and go full romance novel for no reason, just for the laughs and giggles, and folks need to keep track of that and your music and everything else creative that is in the world of Janis. What's the best way for folks to do so?
Well, you can visit my website, which is janisharper.ca. And I spell my name with an IS, like Janis Joplin and Janis Ian. So the website address is JANISHARPER.ca. And there you can read about my books, get links, you can hear my music. And of course, I'm also on Spotify if you want to listen to me there. Again, Janis Harper, Janis with an IS. And I have a few music videos out there and a YouTube channel. all that stuff. As well, for the book, one can go to Amazon.com, or if you live in the States, my publisher is American, so it's very easy. You just go into your local bookstore and request a copy if they don't have it in, and they'll order it in for you in days, and it'll be, yeah, really cheaper price than on Amazon, perhaps. I'm not sure. Anyhow, it's yeah. So that's another way to get it, and same with Canadians. They can request it at your local bookstore and support your local bookstore in the process. Or, of course, Dawn, and this is for you, one can also request it to be in your local library. And so in Canada, it's in a few library systems, but of course, and it would be wonderful if it's accessible in libraries, and for that to happen, I'm sure there's here we have an online form that we fill out to request a title. So there's that. So there's many ways, but yes, janisharper.ca, Amazon.com, Jonas and the Mountain, a Metaphysical Love Story, or you can just check out my name on Amazon, JANISHARPER, and I've kind of repeated that a few times, so I don't want to hit anyone over the head. So that's all I'm saying. Also, there's my publisher's website, sacredstories.com. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She hit us over there with the Mountie stick on that one, baby. That's what I'm talking about. That's right, indeed. But don't worry, she gets all the brownie points, especially the brownies that have the green stuff in it. You get both brownies, all the brownies. That's right. Not saying it's your type of thing, but hey, some people prefer the brownies.
I noticed you like talking about s'mores. That's a different thing, though, I guess. that comes up in your interview. S'mores. But brownies, hey, there's similarities there. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. All the s'mores, all the brownies. That's right. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. She gets all of them, indeed. So you heard it right, folks. Head over to janisharper.ca, folks. Or put the link to all those wonderful things in the show notes, indeed. So be on the lookout for all the stuff she's doing as well, because she has a great head on her shoulders, and it's going to be creating some more stuff. So be on the lookout like a telescope, indeed. So any parting words before we close up shop, Janis?
Oh, no, I just want to thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a delight, Dom. And thank you to everyone out there who's listening.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. The one listening right now. Thanks a bunch for sharing some of your time out of your day to listen to this podcast. To take it to the next level, be sure to share it with someone that you care about and that would get something out of this podcast too. Advance others to advance yourself.